Okay, NFL story here. So there, people are talking about, Shedeur Sanders. It's not a very sexy draft, but there was a Derek Carr story this weekend. And I'm thinking, okay, that's where Shador is going to go. So Derek Carr apparently may not play this season. Did I miss the injury? Was this? I read the story and I thought, did I watched their games last year? I know he was banged up. Were you surprised at
I
all
saw
by
some of
that
the Saints
story?
guys saying that they didn't think it was as serious as being played out, and he just had injured his shoulder in I think either last year or 2 years ago. That I wonder if this is a classic week or two before the draft. You're trying to get some information out there so someone jumps you, right? So players fall to you. I would be a little shocked again if like I'm with you if something that happened that we don't know because immediately like that's a pretty big deal. If you the other thing is they kept him on the roster when they could have cut him for $40 million. You would think that they would have had a pretty good idea the health status. I just think a lot of times the 2 weeks before the draft, you just got to be very, very careful with the shenanigans going on stories being leaked about. It's why I never have an issue, and I know former players get really worked up like when an anonymous GM says something about a player. It's like, guys, this there's no
Yeah.
love and war here. This is a absolute war zone to try to do whatever you have to do to get the player you want. No one remembers this stuff in a couple months. Most of this stuff is all just kind of BS anyway. It's part of the game that's played in this business that everyone's getting richer than they ever thought, players included. So it's like nothing's that bad. Shador, like everyone knows he's not a bad guy or anything. So when it's like he acted a little weird in the combine, things like that get said every single year. And the overreaction, rinse, wash, repeat. It's like everyone just calm down. The Derek Carr thing felt a little like a draft story being thrown out there to try to get people to manipulate spots that maybe the Saints leak it out to try to get someone to throw him. I don't believe much that's happening right now over this last week. Now, I also think I think that the NFL is very turned off by this crop. Because typically you feel really good about 10, 15 guys in a draft. And listen, I like Ashton Genty. People think I'm being critical. When a 5'8" running back from Boise State is considered the third best talent in your draft, you got problems. And listen,
Yeah.
I really like the player. I think taking a 5'8" running back when it's one of the deeper drafts at that position would be insane for any team in like the top 20. That includes the Raiders, the Cowboys. He also played at Boise State where we saw him against Penn State. Not all his fault. It's hard to like his greatness. Is he Barry Sanders? Well, if you're going to take him in the top 10, he better be Barry Sanders or it's a disaster. Because the last couple guys get drafted high, Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson, are not 5'8" kids from Boise State. And again, really good player. His year was awesome. I do think the hype on this guy to draft him really high speaks to two things. One, it's just I think teams are like, well, all these players, we don't think any of them are good, so we might as well take this little guy who's least good. But historically, a 5'8" running back, honestly, going in the first round, Colin, is pretty. It'd be borderline unprecedented. It does not happen very often.
No, I think I've theorized, John, that about 10 years ago, when there was the CTE stories and the concussion stories that the media just pounced on, and they were certainly worthy stories, is that the NFL had a real concern on their hands that they started targeting moms.
Yeah.
Remember that? About 10 years ago when the NFL started targeting women, and it's really helped. They've increased their female audience significantly, and that's great. That means, I mean, it's like more people that love football, the better for you and me. But during the CTE, when they wrote that almost $1 billion check, the NFL had a mom problem. And that was about 10 years ago. I know I'm imprecise, but it was it
Yeah, it
was
was like
around
14,
there.
15. You're right.
And yeah, and I've talked to youth coaches, and turnout has been down. Now, not in Texas, maybe Georgia, Florida, Ohio, but turnout is down. And I'll throw this out there. This is the first draft because kids would have been, remember, they would have been 8. Moms, kids would have been 8. Now they're 18, or no, kids would have been 12 when you start playing football. Now they're 22 outside of
Yeah.
college, right? So if you go 10 years ago, the 22-year-olds getting drafted, 21 would have been 11 and 12 when you start playing tackle football for most kids. And moms are like, nope, nope. Now, some may have been convinced over the last decade. There's been a lot of rule changes. There's fewer concussions. The game is safer. There's less hitting. But if you look at when that story started 10 years ago, the kids in this class were 11 and 12 years old. And this is a casualty of that CTE 2-year story, is that a lot of moms just said, we're not doing it. My son's not playing football. And now there may have been fathers as well, but I have friends in Los Angeles. I have a friend that lives west of the 405, and which is kind of the nicer area of LA, the ritzier area. And he goes, I'm rare. I want my kids to play football. They transfer out of here. They go to school out of our zip code to go play football. He goes, but I can almost find no parents where I live in Brentwood, my friend, where the kids play football. They all play something else: golf, tennis, basketball, baseball, something else. So I'm going to theorize that this is not going to be normal. We're not going to have bad drafts constantly, but will it become a little bit more like the NBA, where about every third or fourth draft you look up and go, yeah, there's about 7, 8 great. I mean, the NBA last year's draft was weak. I mean, bad. If I asked you, and you're a sports guy, name 5 guys in the draft.
They're all from Europe.
So, I mean, the WNBA draft
Yeah.
was more memorable than the NBA draft. So I just think, I don't remember in my lifetime a draft with this level of star power, that it has like 3. If it not for Shedeur Sanders, I wouldn't be, it wouldn't make my show very often. Sorry to interrupt this great video, but please remember to like and subscribe. Thank you. Now back to the video.
I'm going to need a little more data before I agree that I'm not saying that you're wrong. I do think, like, look at this draft.
Right.
It's going to be, there are a lot of offensive and defensive linemen that are going to go in the first round. Those human beings can only do so much athletically, right? They're not going to play baseball. They're going to gravitate toward football. Physically, you can dominate, right? So it's not shocking. One thing that has, I would say, changed, and we're never going back. I know they say sports ebbs and flows, but forever, I remember we did something probably like 7, 8 years ago in Newport, like a Fox iHeart get together. And I remember coming down there, and Carson Palmer was there. And you look up and you realize that. And I remember going to a lot of radio games when I got in the radio, and that the quarterbacks of his generation, Phillip Rivers, Eli, Roethlisberger was on the higher end of athleticism, but most of them were NBA looking human beings, 6'5" to 6'6", but couldn't move. And Tom Brady said this: I could only play one position in a high school football game. I couldn't play any other position in the prime of my career. And Carson Palmer, like those guys can't beat any human in a foot race on the field, including the lineman. Not even close. Those guys don't exist in the draft anymore. All the players at quarterback. So is he now playing golf and pitching in baseball, where for a while maybe he gravitated toward football, and now he realizes the coach only wants Nico Imioala because he can move around even though he can't play, right? But he's a good athlete. And you look at all these college quarterbacks. I remember going through Arch's class. Jack Arnold, I think he transferred from Oklahoma. He's at Auburn now. But the whole group were athletes. None of them were like, Jared Goff is really the last of a dying breed. When you look at the top quarterbacks in the NFL, obviously the top dudes are all athletes. Lamar and Josh are better, but Mahomes, Herbert can all move. Then the Jalen Hurts, even Purdy can move around. There is not a Goff. Even Baker, now that he's slimmed down and gotten older, he's much more of a move around guy.
It's Stafford and Goff for the last two pocket
when Stafford was
quarterbacks.
younger, he had much more mobility. He would have been on a better athlete than like a Palmer or an Eli, right? That human that was always a number 1 pick, or a Phillip Rivers, a top 5 pick, he just doesn't exist in football. But that athlete still exists. They're still going to be the 6'5", 17-year-old kid. Is he just throwing 98 and going to Florida to pitch, or is he going to Arizona State to play golf? Maybe he is, but he's not playing quarterback anymore. And you just look at the history for my entire life, 80s, 90s, 2000s, that guy littered the top 10 in drafts. The 6'5" quarterback from school X that couldn't really run but had a big arm. And not just the first round, like he got drafted throughout the draft. He just doesn't exist playing football. You and I watch a lot of college football. Who on a good team in college football or a good prospect can't move? Even Drew Aller, who's a questionable prospect but can move, right? A little bit. And he's on the
Yeah.
lower end of athleticism for college kids.
I mean, USC has a young quarterback they got from UNLV. And I mean, his greatest asset
Yeah.
is that he moves. He's not a guy that to this point in his career he's very hit and miss. I'm kind of surprised how loyal Lincoln Riley's been to him, but he does move the pocket, and I think that does give these smart offensive coaches about 25% more playbook. And I think that it's an absolute advantage. That's why Stafford is so good because he doesn't get those. He doesn't get movement, right? Like you have to win from the pocket, and Matt can do it. Jared Goff has to win from the pocket. That's why, I mean, if you asked every coach in the league right now, I know it's only 1 year, John. If you asked every coach in the league next 10 years, pick a quarterback, I think they'll take Jaden Daniels. I think that's the kid they look at and go, well, 5 of the years I don't have to pay him. He moves exceptionally well. He's scary, bizarrely poised and accuracy. Like I watched this year, and my take is this is not recency bias. This kid in fourth down, high leverage, overtime, last drive of the game. This shit is in. He's just intuitive. Like he just understands. It's innate that you can't teach some of that
Well,
stuff that
I
kid
think what's
does.
made Lamar such an awesome player is he was a mobile guy that has morphed into this hybrid. He can play in the pocket and kill you, but he wasn't like that early, and he's become that. Jaden, I think a lot of people thought like this athlete guy immediately he's like awesome pocket passer who also can just take off and move around. Not quite like Lamar, but kind of.
Yeah.
And I just you're always going to have to win from within the pocket. But I think now college, you only get to pick. Parcells used to say like the grocery store is college football. That's where we pick the ingredients. Well, college is only giving you. Look at the national championship. Historically, when you think Ohio State and Notre Dame, you think like pocket quarterbacks. Both those guys were sprinting around. Will Howard had one of the biggest runs in the game. So like
Yeah.
Will Howard can play a little bit from the pocket too, but he's an athletic guy. That's why when they got him from Kansas State, you're like, is this going to work? Chip wants a mobile guy, and then by the playoff run, he's like really throwing well from the pocket. But that's all college football is the mobility, which is good. Like I'm not. No one's being like I wouldn't want Patrick Mahomes, but like it still works with Jared Goff, and like if you put Peyton Manning or Tom Brady at 30 years old in this league, they would be just fine because they get rid of the football really quick. But you watch college football, no one plays like that anymore. So I do wonder
Yeah.
if that is morphing into the kids that play football in high school. Because if you're a high school coach, I don't watch much high school football, but it does feel like all the top recruits are all like moving around.
Yep. They are indisputable.